Excuse me.
Yes, sir?
More beer over here.
I think you've had enough, don't you? I'm sorry, but the pump appears to be broken.
I could fix it for you.
I don't think so. This is a job for a professional electrician. Oh well, at least the glass washer is still working. It's not my idea, is it?
It just so happens I'm an electrician. Check out my credentials.
Well, no. Isn't that marvellous? Here's a house bedevilled with faulty wiring of a wayward nature. Here's you, an electric man, with a little plastic card to prove it. I still want to see what you can do before I let you touch me beer pumps. You can make a start on the glass washer. And when you've finished that, will you take a look at the pumps?
It was an electric glass washer. It looked even older than the barman. I couldn't see anything obviously wrong with the machine. I figured it must be the wiring. It was an electrical plug attached to the glass washer. I used all my knowledge of electrical engineering to examine the plug. It was a short piece of wire twisted into a rough circle. I replaced the fuse with a piece of wire. I knew it was dangerous, but I was desperate enough to disregard everything I knew about standard safety precautions. Excuse me, Mr. Leary. I fixed your glass washer, no problem.
Bingo! And a blessing to all the saints. A free half pint to that man, on the house. Now, could you take a look at the beer pumps?
Well, I guess so, but I'm not making any promises.
If you can't fix them, I'll have a riot on me hands.
The pumps are in the cellar, right?
That's right. You'll find a flashlight down there somewhere.
It was the lever which locked the trap door. I pushed the lever and heard the grating of metal, but nothing appeared to happen. I lifted the trap door and an overpowering smell of stale beer rose from the cellar below. I looked down on a stone-tiled floor, way too far to jump.
Excuse me.
There was a nasty feeling in my guts I usually associated with light opera. It was Khan. What's the problem?
Did you see what happened here a few minutes ago?
What was that?
A man was involved in an unfortunate accident.
I didn't see anything.
What about the boy?
He doesn't know anything either. The kid, well, you know how it is in these rural communities. Not enough genes to go round. I prayed McGuire had the sense to keep his mouth shut. Was the guy hurt bad?
He's been taken care of, but he thinks he dropped a small parcel. You didn't happen to find it, did you?
If I had, I would have taken it to the police.
Of course. Thank you.
Now I could see. I spotted Mr. Leary's flashlight easily. Then I noticed a flash of light, something sparkling beneath the open trap door. It was Peagram's gem, all right. A large, uncut blue stone. I guess I was already under its spell.
Did you find it?
What?
Whatever you was looking for.
Yeah. Listen, McGuire, I want you to keep this to yourself.
No problemo. Just chuck us up a crate of lager.
No way, you're not old enough.
We can sell it and make some cash.
Forget it, kid. I couldn't betray Mr. Leary's trust.
I could, for sure. That old misery guts deserves it.
If you want to do me a favor, keep a lookout for that guy in the suit.
Okay. But it'll cost you a packet of chips.
Oh, and shout if you see that Ferrari. The faucet creaked, coughed, and spewed out a stream of rusty-colored water. I shut off the faucet as tight as I could, but it kept on dripping. It was the barman's flashlight. It was a large blue gemstone. Hello again.
What?
What do you think of this flashlight?
Very useful. That could be very handy in the dark. How much do you want for it?
It's not for sale. It belongs to Leary. What does this gem mean to you?
Well, well. Would you look at that? Pretty.
Do you recognize it?
No?
I'll see you later. Hey! Hello there again, mister. What do you think of this flashlight? It's not very bright, is it? I could say the same about some of the present company. That's true. Don't let him hear you. Keep it under your hat, mister.
That flashlight, like your brain dying, is not switched on.
Do you recognize this gem? Saints be praised. It must be worth a fortune. Bye for now. Excuse me, Mr. O'Brien.
Hello there. What now?
What do you think of this flashlight?
It's not a very practical piece of equipment, is it?
It's not switched on.
Well, I'm referring to the lack of a bracket. How would you be fixing that to your bicycle?
I don't have a bicycle. What can you tell me about the gem which Peagram found?
Now there's a gem which should never have been taken. A man would have to be full of greed to covet that stone. What's your interest in the jewel? You're not a reporter, are you?
Yes, that's right.
And not a bloody news hound. Well, you're wasting your time here, boy. You'll find the people of Lochman are a tight-lipped and cautious lot.
Why? Have you got something to hide?
It's just that we don't like to wash our dirty laundry in public.
I have a suspicion that Fitzgerald might have been given something by Peagram.
I thought he acted strangely.
I'm talking about the gem. It was something he said.
Were you not speaking to him when he ran out of the bar?
I only asked him about the gem.
Fitzgerald has troubles enough already. He's a nervous, unstable man at the best of times. The last thing he needs is to be harassed by a hack newsboy.
Goodbye for now.
Good riddance to you.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir?
I found your flashlight.
So I see it. You'd better keep hold of that until you fix the pumps.
Does this gem mean anything to you?
Sure. What a beauty. I bet you wish that was real, don't you?
Check out my card.
I've seen it, for heaven's sake.
Why won't you shake my hand?
Because I don't know where you've been.
Look, I gotta be going. Hey, McGuire.
What?
What do you think of my flashlight?
It's a torch. That's what we call it on this side of the Atlantic.
Want a closer look at the gem, McGuire?
You'd better hide that, mister. What if the pixie comes back? You'll be in trouble then.
I don't believe in pixies. Underneath that costume is a psychotic killer.
Smart.
See you later, kid.
Okay, mister.
The gates were made of solid, age-blackened wood. Pushing with all my strength got me nowhere. They didn't budge. I really need to start working out. The farmer's craggy face was set in a mask of aesthetic appreciation. His feet were set in a pair of manure-caked boots.
Hi, do you speak English?
Well, now, what if I was to say no? An implication of cognizance shrouded in denial. A pretty poser of a paradox indeed.
I gave him the look I'd perfected when I was 12 and was going to be the greatest hypnotist of all time. It was a killer.
Are you attempting to hypnotize me, or is it the constipation you're suffering?
I was a little out of practice. What can you tell me about the castle?
Not much, I'm sorry to say. Most of its history is long forgotten. Ah, but if these old stones could only speak, what stories they'd tell. Stories to make your toes curl and your blood run cold. You know, this castle is said to be over 600 years old.
Have you seen Professor Peagram?
No, he's packed up and gone.
Do you happen to know where?
Back in England, I suppose.
Do you recognize the man in this photograph?
No, but I wouldn't trust him. His eyes are too close together.
Does this false nose mean anything to you?
You're a circus clown.
What do you make of this tissue?
That's a sorry sight to wave about in public.
What do you make of this matchbook?
Seems ordinary enough to me.
Do you recognize the name on this card?
I can't read that little writing.
Have you any use for this towel?
Whatever gave you that idea? Oh dear me, no.
Does this tool mean anything to you?
No, it doesn't. Is it used on sheep?
No, it's for lifting the covers off drains.
Never. How?
Well, the end of the tool fits into the hole in the cover.
They'd slip out. Angles are wrong. You'd never do it.
I have. I did it in Paris. What do you think of my flashlight?
Those electric lamps are useful but limited in lifespan in my experience. I was given one for my birthday, but it stopped working after a month.
Oh, the battery was probably drained.
What? Nobody told me. I threw it away.
This is the gem that Peagram found in the castle.
So that's what all the fuss was about. I can't see why myself. Why men would fight and steal and kill over a little bauble like that.
Well, it's kind of neat the way it sparkles. Would you like to shake my hand?
What is this? I don't do that male bonding stuff.
Did you happen to see a red sports car down on the road?
I caught a glimpse of a flash of red on the hill and heard the racket. Sure, it was an awful noise. A sports car, you say?
A Ferrari, to be exact.
A racing car? And what was it doing here? The poor fella must have been lost.
The driver of the Ferrari was involved in an accident.
Is that so?
Yeah, he knocked somebody down outside the bar.
What an idiot! How could a thing like that happen?
He was traveling too fast.
So fast, he ran right under the car?
I mean, the car was traveling too fast.
But you'd have thought the idiot could have heard it coming.
Maybe you know the guy who was hit by the Ferrari. His name is Sean Fitzgerald.
Oh, I know him all right. That's me nephew, the idiot responsible for the stacking of my hay cart. Was he killed by the car?
Oh no, but he has been abducted.
Well, that's a relief now.
Aren't you going to look for your nephew?
What for? From what you say, it's too late.
Well, you could report the matter to the police.
Better not. Besides, what could they do?
Well, they could mount a search.
They have only the one bicycle between them. In a question of superior acceleration, I put me money on the Ferrari.
I think you ought to know exactly what Sean has gotten himself into.
I'm not sure I want to know.
But you're his uncle, his own flesh and blood.
You're right, but what can I do? If I'm not here to guard it, some idiot might try to climb the haystack. What a moral dilemma. stay here and guard this potentially lethal agricultural construction, or to go off in search of the prodigal nephew, the very man responsible for said hazard? It'll need some thinking about.
Why, there's no problem.
You're right. Why didn't I think of it before? We'll demolish the haystack.
You don't have to demolish the haystack to go look for Sean. I'll stay here in your place and warn anyone who's silly enough to climb it.
Marvellous! I think I should start me inquiries in the bar.
He strode off in the direction of McDevitt's bar, leaving me to contemplate the stack of hay. On the back of the cart was a crazily stacked tower of hay bales, leaning precariously against the castle wall. The stack of hay stopped, short of the top of the wall. Even if I stretched as far as I could, the wall was out of reach. What I needed was a slice or two of Alice's Wonderland. There was a narrow crack between two of the stones where the centuries-old mortar had crumbled away. I pushed my fingers into the narrow crack. It went back several inches into the rock. I inserted the end of the lifting key in the mortarless crack and gave it a firm shove. It remained lodged in the wall, jutting out to form a step. The lifting key was rammed tightly into the crack in the wall, forming a strong foothold. I tugged at the lifting key and found it was held quite securely. It was a rusted piece of iron, maybe part of a plow or something. The rope by which the goat was tethered had become tangled on the old plowshare. Behind the altar was a carved panel, decorated with animals, birds, and plants. I tried in vain to move the panel. There was a pattern of 5 holes arranged on the wall. They'd been drilled there deliberately. I placed my fingers and thumb into the holes in the wall. Nothing happened. It was a statue which had fallen from its place on the wall. 5 fingers of stone projected from the back of the carving. The statue was too heavy to lift. It overbalanced into the sand. The statue lay face up in the soft sand. As I swung the stone upright, I noticed it had left a pattern of holes in the sand. The 5 fingers on the back of the statue had left their impressions in the fine sand. I placed my fingers in the 5 impressions left by the fallen stone. It was weird. They fit perfectly. The sack contained a fine white powder. As I dipped my fingers into the soft white powder, I realized what it was. Plaster of Paris. I'd used it in kindergarten to make casts of animal paw prints. It was a handful of plaster left in the castle by Peagram's archaeology team. I sprinkled the plaster on the sand until the holes were filled. The patch of sand where the statue had fallen was covered with a dense sprinkling of plaster. I smoothed the plaster level with the sand. It was my first experience of home improvement. I squeezed the towel as hard as I could, but it was barely damp. It was a rusty faucet. The faucet creaked, coughed, and spewed out a stream of rusty-colored water. I held the towel under the faucet and soaked it with water. It was a rectangle of toweling printed with the words, "Nagopaline stout builds body." The towel was soaked through with water. The trickle of water was quickly absorbed by the plaster. My improvised plaster cast was slowly drying out. I eased the solid piece of plaster from the sand. Underneath, it had formed a perfect copy of the statue. The plaster cast was a pretty neat replica of the back of the stone, complete with protruding fingers. The hardened plaster cast fitted snugly into the 5 matching sockets. There was a soft thud, then silence.
I arrived to find the Palais Royal courtyard deserted. I only hoped that I'd beaten the assassin here. I had to warn Imelda before it was too late. A doorbell. The intercom system wasn't working. Bad sign. Somebody had cut the wire. Carchon's front door. There was a fresh scratch on the paint. The kind that's left when someone's picked the lock. If I was right, Imelda was getting a lesson from a mime artist. And it wasn't the old moving staircase routine. Locked? No way was I going to break through a door like that. If only I could get up to the window. That broken window looked like the best way in. It was held in place by wires. Maybe it wasn't art after all. Maybe it was a cell phone transmitter. People say, what's the point of modern art? I say, isn't it obvious? Fixed tight, presumably to stop critics stealing it. Who else would want to? I unhooked the first wire. I released the second wire. Even with both wires removed, the statue remained upright. If I could deconstruct this, I could deconstruct anything. The window had been repaired with industrial plastic sheeting. The plastic sheet was thick and strong. I'd need more than my hands to tear it. My God, I'm too late. Imelda. Oh no.
Nico?
Don't worry, you're going to be alright.
You know that isn't true.
It was Merlin, wasn't it?
Dressed as a cavalier. How absurd. You came to warn me, didn't you?
I must be crazy.
Let me see you, Nico.
All this time you were just using me. Which one is the real Imelda?
You are an extraordinary girl. Thierry would have been so proud of you.
You didn't know my father.
So like him. Something about the eyes. I wish we'd had time to get to know each other.
She was gone. She cheated me, lied to me, used me. But why? The Carchons in happier days. Well, before they were both assassinated at least. A beautiful fireplace. Though I doubt the Carchons used to cuddle up in front of it with a TV dinner. Climbing up the fireplace would be futile. Even in death, Imelda looked the same. Beautiful, inscrutable. The Ice Queen alone in her ice palace. Around her neck was a locket. I opened it. Inside was a tiny gold key. I took the key. I had to leave. I knew I could never return. The phone was the obvious place to look for a bug. But this handset hadn't been opened for years. Besides, they would have just bugged the line. No bug, just a 20-year-old piece of gum. My first teddy. Never had a boyfriend as loyal as him. Undisturbed. No bugs there. It was a photograph of my father, the first one I ever took, with the first camera he ever bought me. They hadn't placed the bug on the photo. In the dim light, I caught the reflection of something metallic. A small, sinister-looking metal disc had been tucked under my father's box. It was a bug. Oh, chère cousine, you left me a little present. You shouldn't have. You don't scare me. Espèce de... The box was carved by my father. It never had a key. The elephant on the lid was a perfect match to Carchon's. It was the key from Imelda's locket. I took out the key. I couldn't believe it. Imelda's key opened my father's box. I dreaded what I was going to find inside. Hotel St. George, Algiers, Friday. My darling Thierry, by the time you read this, you'll be safely out of Africa. You need not fear. Pierre and the organization do not know who you are really working for, or about us. Did you think I would betray you? I could not. You wanted me to leave him, but I don't have your courage. I know too much of what has been going on here. They would find me and they would kill us both. Enjoy your life in Paris, Thierry. Your life of honor, of patriotic duty. Do they give medals to spies? No, they'll just give you a phony job in an embassy somewhere. I could never share that with you. Imagine me, a diplomat's wife. So I must stay here with Pierre, the two of us bound together by what we have done to this country. Au revoir, my love. You will be in my heart until I die. Imelda. It was a photograph of Imelda. I felt as if a black hole had swallowed me up. Imelda and Carchon grinning. While behind them a village was being razed to the ground, its people butchered. And there, next to them, staring out at me across the years, my own father. I stared at my father's image, looked deep into his eyes. What was he thinking when this picture was taken? How brave he had been. I missed him so much. He and Imelda must have fallen in love. She'd found out who he really was, so he had to leave. It had broken her heart, but she had never revealed it to anyone. I knew I couldn't either. Whatever he was doing, he'd had good reason to keep it secret. I decided I would respect that and tell nobody. I knew it was George. For a moment I was tempted to pretend that I was out, or ask him to go away and come back later. But then... Come in.
Hello, George. So, where did you stay last night?
At McDevitt's. I got to drinking with Doyle and a couple of the guys.
That explains why you look so ill today. Did you get any sleep at all?
Not much. I had to share the room with another guy.
Did he snore?
Hardly. He was dead. Then Leary woke me in the middle of the night to help bail out the cellar.
The cellar was flooded?
Yeah, some idiot had left the faucet running.
And you say Peagram has disappeared?
Without a trace. But my visit wasn't a complete waste of time.
Peagram's gem?
The Templars' gem. Whoever Jacques Marquet is, he's in for a disappointment.
Jacques Marquet?
He's the guy who should have collected the gem from Fitzgerald.
What are your plans?
I want to find out who, what, or where Montfaucon was. All I've got to go by is the name and a picture of a hanged man. Do you want to look after the gem?
No, George. I'd be too tempted to sell it.
Look, Nico, a handful of plaster.
Yeah. Why is it that men never really grow up?
What's your problem, sister?
Your pockets stuffed with useless junk like little boys.
You never know when useless junk might come in handy. Do you want this photograph back?
No, you keep it. I can always make another print.
I can't sit here all day, much as I'd like to.
Okay. Don't forget to look for Lopinot at the Kroon Museum. And why don't you see if Rousseau has heard anything?
Okay. Anything else I can do for you while I'm out? Shopping, a trip to the laundromat?
Just take care of yourself.
I so much wanted to talk to George about everything that had happened, but I knew I never could. My father's connection to Africa would have to remain a secret forever. His bravery would be known only to the government and to me. Revealing it would just damage his memory. People would take the story and twist it. Before long, he would be the villain and Carchon would be the hero. I know how they do that. I'm a journalist.
Sergeant Moo?
Yes,
What are you going to do about Flap and Guido, Sergeant?
I'm going to bust them, monsieur. For years I have been hoping to pin something on that pair. Now's my chance. I'll show them, and the inspector.
Thanks, Sergeant. Thanks for taking me seriously.
I'm only doing my duty, monsieur.
Have you heard of a man called Marquet?
Yes. He used to be known as the Mole of Montmartre. I heard he's been hospitalized, probably by one of his rivals.
Which hospital was Marquet taken to?
The Hagenmeyer Clinic, in the Avenue des Hérissons.
Why was Marquet known as the Mole of Montmartre?
Because he lived in Montmartre, I suppose.
Yeah, but why the mole?
I don't know. Maybe he ruined people's lawns.
See you later, Sergeant. There was no sign of the crew of the ambulance. I felt a little guilty as I tried the door, like I was about to rob a grave. I gripped the handle with an involuntary tremble in my hand and pulled. The door was locked. The guy seemed to be practicing his air of authority. Today, he was working on his withering stare. The woman managed to look overworked and hassled, though she didn't appear to be doing anything. Excuse me.
Yes, sir?
Is this the Hagenmeyer Clinic?
That's correct.
I thought I was in a garden center.
Oh, the plans. They were my idea. A little greenery to evoke the spirit of nature. How may I help you?
I'm here to see Jacques Marquet.
Oh, yes. Are you related to our client, sir?
Yeah, I'm his, long-lost brother.
A brother half his age with a different name and an American accent.
Yeah, people always say that. I blame Mom. We were separated at an early age, after a mix-up in the nursery at the Oakland shopping mall.
I've never heard anything so ridiculous in all my life.
I guess not. So, do I get to see Marquet before the funeral?
That attitude will get you nowhere. My instructions were quite clear. No one gets to see Marquet. So unless you can prove you're a relative or a close acquaintance, you're wasting your time here.
Has Marquet been visited by a man in a clown costume?
Oh, no.
You haven't seen a man in disguise?
Well, there's Theodore the Bear. He comes every Thursday to entertain the children. Personally, I think he scares them half to death in that crummy old bear suit. If I was stuck on my back with tubes in every orifice, he's the last person I'd want to see.
Has Marquet had a visit from a pair of gangsters?
I should hope not. Can you describe them?
A thin guy who looks like a weasel and his friend, the gorilla.
Sounds as if they escaped from a zoo.
I'd like to shake you by the hand.
Don't be fresh, young man.
Have you seen this man here at the clinic?
No, sir. And I never forget a face.
What does this false nose remind you of?
Oh, it's a clown's nose.
Can you think of any use for this greasy tissue?
I guess you could use it to baste a roast turkey.
Is this plaster any use to you?
I'm allergic to plaster.
What does this tool suggest to you?
Is it a crack detector?
Huh?
Polar explorers use them to poke about in the snow.
Oh no. Have you heard of the Club Alamet?
No. It sounds romantic, doesn't it?
What does this gem suggest to you?
I advise you not to flash that around.
Look at this ID pass.
So you're Merlin. Marquet's been asking for you.
For me?
Yes. He was shouting your name when they brought him in here. Now, let me see. He was on Ward B12, as I recall. Oh, he's being transferred to... Oh dear. He's on Ward J2. That's Nurse Grendel's ward.
What's so bad about Nurse Grendel?
She runs that ward like a South American prison.
Keeping a well-disciplined ward isn't a crime, is it?
Well disciplined. In the discipline and punishment stakes, she'd whip the butt off the Marquis de Sade. Everything, I mean everything, is done to a strict routine. 6 o'clock alarm call, 6:10 bowel movements, and woe betide anyone who doesn't have a result. Those patients of hers are like Pavlova's dogs.
She sounds like a real nightmare.
And then some.
If Nurse Grendel is that bad, how come the authorities tolerate her?
She's like part of the furniture.
I was beginning to get the picture. This woman was jealous, with a big green capital J. How do I find Nurse Grendel's ward?
Down the corridor on the left, turn right at the senior consultant's washroom. Right again at the executive coffee lounge. Bear left past the administrator's sauna, and turn left at the end. That's J2. And good luck.
Thanks for your help, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name's George Stobbart.
Really? If you wish to make an appointment, see the receptionist.
I'm looking for a guy named Jacques Marquet.
In which department does he work?
He doesn't. He's a patient.
I see.
You do realize there are strict policies regarding visiting hours, don't you?
This is important. I have to talk to Marquet urgently.
We make no exceptions to the rules.
It's a matter of life and death.
The well-oiled running of this hospital is a matter of life and death. That's why we have rules.
I think I ought to warn you that Marquet is not what he seems.
Explain yourself.
He's in league with a bunch of guys who want to take over the world.
Nonsense. Besides, Marquet's employers have paid in advance for one of our most exclusive private rooms.
Could you tell me who Marquet's employers are?
Certainly not.
May I have the honor of shaking you by the hand?
You may not. I don't encourage physical contact between my staff.
Do you recognize the man in this photograph?
No, sir, I do not.
Do you recognize this red nose, sir?
No, I do not. This is a hospital, not a circus ring. We minister to the sick in body, not the sick in mind.
What do you make of this tissue, sir?
If I were you, I'd have this sample analyzed.
Does this white powder mean anything to you?
No, sir. I do not pretend to know the pharmacist's job.
Does this tool mean anything to you?
Sacre bleu! That's exactly what I needed in my last operation.
It is?
I had to improvise with a knitting needle and a couple of corks. If only you'd been on hand at the time, my patient would have given his right arm for it.
Have you ever heard of the Club Alamat?
No, sir, I have not.
Does the name Thomas Merlin mean anything to you?
No, it does not.
Look at this, Doc. It's a genuine medieval type gemstone.
Yes, so I see. Remarkable.
I have to take this gem to Marquet. He might be able to explain its significance.
My dear chap, Marquet has other things on his mind right now.
Like what?
His catheter, for one.
Thanks for your help. As I turned the corner, I saw the source of the hellish noise which echoed through the corridors. It was an industrial polishing machine with an odd-looking guy in tow. He looked blissfully happy, for no apparent reason. The door didn't have a sign or label or any kind of identification. The connector in the socket supplied electricity to the polishing machine.
Oui, monsieur.
Is this Ward J2?
It is, but you're not supposed to be here. We have strict rules about visiting hours.
Can't you make an exception? I've come all the way from California.
You must speak to the doctor.
I can't wait that long. What if he snuffs it?
You can't talk like that here. This is a hospital. You will have to leave.
Hey now! You can't go in there.
How come?
I'm responsible for the contents of that cupboard.
Hello.
What's that?
I said hello.
Oh, hiya.
I'd like to talk to you for a minute.
That's what I thought you said. Don't look so down in the mouth. No matter how bad things seem, I never let life get on top of me.
Oh yeah? What's your secret?
Why, it's easy. All you have to do is smile and whistle this little tune.
You know what? If you start whistling, I'll bust you in the teeth.
It's a deal.
Do you know where I'd find a patient called Marquet?
No, I'm not allowed on the wards with Mr. Shiny.
Have you seen any unsavory characters lurking about in the corridors?
No, sir, I haven't, but I've got nothing to worry about. What's that, Mr. Shiny? You'd take good care of the rascals, I'll bet you would. With a friend like him, I've no fear of oppressors.
It must be a great comfort.
He is.
Would Mr. Shiny be your polishing machine by any chance?
Please, don't call him that. He's more of a friend than a machine. I've had Mr. Shiny for 3 years, and he's never let me down once.
How come you got so attached to a polishing machine?
I asked you not to call him that. He's got a name, you know.
Yeah, Mr. Shiny. It's just that...
You think it's odd, don't you? I don't mind. The rest of the staff think I'm twisted. I heard them snorking behind me back when I gave Mr. Shiny his weekly pull-through.
What's the problem with Nurse Grendel?
She's uptight and twisted on account of a broken heart.
Oh, that's too bad. I thought she was just plain bad-tempered.
That also. By the way, sir, I wouldn't stand too close to Mr. Shiny's grease valve. If he has an emission, it'll take the shine clean off your shoes. Say, nice sneakers.
Thanks. Would you like to shake my hand?
Not until I've washed, if you don't mind, sir.
Do you recognize the man in this photograph?
Who is it?
That's what I'm asking you. Have you seen him before?
How should I know? You haven't told me who he is.
Take a look at the photo.
Yeah, okay.
Now, have you seen him before?
No.
Take a look at this red nose.
Are you a policeman?
No, this is a clown's nose, not a policeman's. What does this tissue suggest to you?
You have a cold. What you need is vitamin C.
Do you recognize this powder?
Is that dandruff?
No way.
It sure looks like dandruff.
It's plaster.
Ugh!
Would this tool be any use to you?
No, sir. Mr. Shiny has no user-serviceable parts. Whatever that means.
Do you recognize this matchbook?
You should never ever play with matches.
I know that, but...
People get hurt when they do. They end up in hospital, like the burger lady. She was so burned up, they didn't know whether to use bandages or onions.
Do you recognize this pass?
No, I don't. Should I?
No, but I wondered if you'd seen a stranger flashing it about.
No, sir. But if I had, Mr. Shiny would take care of him.
What do you think of this, Sam?
Oh, boy! What is it?
A priceless gemstone, found in a medieval castle in Ireland. Get me into Marquet's ward, and it's yours.
I don't wear jewellery.
If this gem was yours, you'd be able to buy 100 Mr. Shinies.
Don't be silly. There's only one Mr. Shiny.
See you later.
Yeah, take care now. Hey, I asked you not to go in there.
I know, but I'm curious.
Oh no, I'm responsible for that cupboard and the contents.
Okay.
I told you to leave. You may come back at visiting time, monsieur.
Thanks. When is that?
The second Tuesday of each month.
Okay, ma'am. I know when I'm not wanted. As I tugged the plug out of the socket, the polishing machine coughed, spluttered, and died.
Mr. Shiny, what's wrong, pal?
It was a classic example of functionalism, like an early Soviet spacecraft. I almost expected to see a dog or a monkey leap out.
Good afternoon, Doctor. The patients are ready for your inspection, Doctor.
Thank you, nurse.
You'll need this, Doctor.
She gave me a long, narrow metal box and a stunning smile. Thanks.
Could you take a look at the client in bed number 3 now? His name is Eric Sopmarsh.
Do you have a patient named Marquet on this ward?
Oui, monsieur. He is in the private room at the end of the ward. He has been placed in strict isolation.
Why is Marquet in quarantine?
If you wish to know more, you will have to speak to Herr Hagenmeier. All I know is that Marquet's room is strictly out of bounds.
Do you know who paid for Marquet's room?
No, of course I don't.
Preferential treatment like that must cost an arm and a leg.
That's not my concern, monsieur.
Do you have any clowns on the ward?
Why, yes, we do. A professional clown.
I'll bet he lightens the place up.
Hardly. Monsieur Boissy has been in a coma for the last 3 months.
What's wrong with Boissy?
He was involved in a very nasty accident. A silly stunt involving a unicycle. His current condition is due to post-traumatic shock. It's unlikely he'll ever perform as a clown again.
It's an ill wind that blows nobody any good. Would you like to shake hands with me?
Well...
No, it's okay. Forget it. Do you recognize the man in this photograph?
No, I don't.
Do you recognize this tissue?
No, I don't. It looks like a chronic health risk to me.
Well, I've been carrying it around for days and I'm okay. Is this plaster any use to you?
No, it isn't.
Does this tool mean anything to you?
I don't recognize it.
Does this mean anything to you?
The Club Alamut? I've never heard of it.
Do you know Merlin of Gruber Electronics?
No, I don't.
Does this gem mean anything to you?
It's beautiful, but I've never seen it before.
What is this device?
It's for taking the patient's blood pressure, Doctor.
Thank you, nurse.
Au revoir, monsieur.
The nurse was stunningly beautiful. The guys on this ward sure were lucky to be in her care. This guy didn't look sick to me. He didn't have spots or stitches, and he certainly didn't have a fever. Hello? Anybody home?
Who are you?
My name is Dr. Stobbart, and I'm here to steer you down the rocky road to recovery.
Dr. Monroe said there was no cure for what I've got.
Your problem is you stayed in bed too long.
Are you sure you're a qualified doctor?
You better believe it. What's your impression of Nurse Grendel?
She's a very efficient young woman.
Efficient? You make her sound like a vacuum cleaner.
I've no complaints.
The woman in reception described Nurse Grendel as a monster.
Well, that's simply not true. She's quite strict, but that's her job, isn't it? You've got to have discipline in a place like this.
What can you tell me about Marquet?
He's the man in the private room, isn't he? That room was mine before I was tossed out like a common squatter.
Do you know what's wrong with Marquet?
They won't even say what's wrong with me. Tell me, Doctor, what's your opinion?
It's too early to say.
But I've been here for 3 months.
That is not a good idea. Do you recognize the man in this photograph?
No, Doctor. Who is it?
A cold-blooded killer. Do you recognize this red nose?
Doesn't that belong to Boissy?
No, I found it in a sewer.
He's a clown, you know. You wouldn't think so to look at him now, would you?
Have you any idea what this is?
No, Doctor. I wouldn't even like to guess.
Do you know what this is?
It looks like plaster.
Do you know what this tool is used for?
I'd rather not, Doctor.
Have you ever heard of the Club Alimut?
I'm not really a nightclub man, Doctor.
Have you heard of a guy called Merlin?
No, Doctor.
Does this gem mean anything to you?
No, Doctor.
I'm going to take your blood pressure.
Why?
I'm a doctor. It's my job. Seems fine to me.
You're not doing it right.
I'll come back later.
Doctor!
What is it?
You haven't taken my blood pressure.
Seems fine to me.
You're not doing it right.
Of course I am.
No, you're not. Dr. Monroe never did it like that.
I can't take a satisfactory reading while you're excited like this. I'll come back later.
Oh, Doctor.
What now?
You didn't finish taking my blood pressure.
Okay, let's try again.
You don't have the first idea what you're doing, do you?
I'll come back when you've recovered your manners.
You haven't finished taking my blood pressure.
Will you keep quiet? You're disturbing the other patients.
I'll keep quiet when you've taken my blood pressure properly.
I have to see Jacques Marquet first.
How come he gets preferential treatment? It's because he's got money, isn't it?
I'll come back when you've dealt with that chip on your shoulder. Pardon me, nurse.
Oui, monsieur?
Do you want this,
Device for measuring blood pressure?
Yeah, do you want it back?
No, thank you.
Thank you, nurse.
Au revoir, monsieur.